Hello, today is Wednesday, October 15th, and welcome to episode 514 of Fault Lines, the National Security Institute's podcast that gets you quickly up to speed 3 times a week on the national security and foreign policy debates shaking up America. I'm NSI fellow Jessica Jones, and I'm joined today by our special guest, NSI founder and executive director Jamil Jaffer, deputy executive director Martha Miller, and our favorite advisory board member, Les Munson. Don't tell the others, Les. All right, we're talking about Les's favorite topic, Gen Z. If you've been reading the news, there have been a number of Gen Z protests around the world that have, been reshaping politics. A Gen Z, Les, if you don't remember, those are folks born between 1997 and 2012. Actually, you've got two Gen Zers yourself, don't you, Les, too?
I do.
So you should understand this topic well. Well, most recently this week in Madagascar, after weeks of Gen Z-driven protests over utility blackouts, water shortages, and corruption, the president fled and the parliament voted to impeach him. Questions remain as soldiers also dissolved all of Madagascar's major institutions, including the highest court, the Electoral Commission, and the Senate. They did leave in place the National Assembly, which is the lower house of parliament. But this isn't the only protest we've seen. Early this month, we also saw young folks forcing governments to respond in Nepal. Demonstrations sparked by a sweeping social media ban and also corruption drove the resignation of the prime minister and the installation of interim leader. There have also been protests in Morocco, Peru, Indonesia, really all over the world. So, Jamil, I'm going to turn first to you. What do you make of the protests we're seeing here? Are they singular? Are they connected? Does the U.S. need to worry about anything or be watching anything?
Well, I mean, that's the $1 million question, Jess, and I don't know that we know the answer yet. But what we do see is this sort of global phenomenon now. As you point out, two countries, governments overthrown in Nepal and now Madagascar, instability in Indonesia. Morocco, elsewhere around the world, Peru, you mentioned as well. So this is not just a localized phenomenon to Africa, to Southeast Asia, now South America as well. And there's something to this, right? It's all youth-led. It's all driven by economic conditions, political conditions, and the like, access to power. By the way, you saw the youth demonstrations historically back in Taiwan as well. A lot of what happened in Taiwan, which also may be driving what's happening in places like Nepal, Madagascar, Indonesia, Peru, Morocco, is the ability of young people to come together on social media, to form these coalitions, and ultimately to take action in IRL, as it were. And so, I think this is part of the
In real
dynamic
life for those.
in real life, right? For those old people like Les who don't know what that means. Although Les does have a very active Instagram account. He's probably the most active Instagrammer on this podcast. I mean, he's basically like a 16-year-old on Instagram. Check it out. But look, I think the real question is, what does this mean? In the larger scheme of things, will we see? Is this sort of the next Arab Spring? Is this the Orange Revolutions? Will we see this taking place in the West? We haven't seen it yet. In the West, other than it depends on what would you consider Peru and Latin America part of the West. But it's certainly going global. And so the question becomes, is this the beginning of a much larger trend? And will this be successful at changing governments, and not necessarily changing the government themselves, but changing the policies of government in places like Morocco, Peru, and Indonesia?
I'm going to turn to you and zoom in a little to Madagascar, which I think for many, you just think of the movie Madagascar, where the zoo animals escape out of the stimulates that.
The animated.
The animated movie. It's very good, by the way, if you haven't seen it. Where does Madagascar relate to U.S. national security interests?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's a fascinating country on many levels. First and foremost, I bet a lot of people don't know that even the language they speak is a type of Malay, and in the Malay language family. So we're talking Indian Ocean. This is the Mozambique corridor, the channel, has become very important for international commerce. We've talked about the Red Sea disruptions on our podcast numerous times. The fact that a huge amount of commerce has had to shift to go around the Cape of Good Hope. So that has made the Mozambique Channel very important, more so than in prior years. And so we've actually been engaged in military training for maritime security. And that's a topic that's actually really important for the Quad, this cooperation we have with India, Japan, and Australia. So, look, I think any instability in Madagascar can have outsized implications for not just security, but the, world economy as well. They already deal with piracy and robbery in those waters, but we are also competing with China in that area. And look, no one has, we don't have evidence to substantiate, influence that could be going on behind the scenes or, surreptitiously. But we know that some of our adversaries have been very active in sowing discord and political instability in much of Africa. So, and Madagascar is certainly not immune to that. So, look, this is, I think, important to us. I don't think, the fact that this is deemed a coup, presumably, may or may not be relevant in the bigger picture to our security needs and concerns.
The kids are calling it a coup. Les,
Well, no, but I mean, but Jess, I mean, this coup point is an important one. Obviously, the military coming in behind these youth, is an interesting part of that dynamic, both in Nepal and here in Madagascar. And as Martha points out, this is a U.S. trained military. So when we cut off aid to them, because this is in fact a military coup, take over. The last president, by the way, Madagascar, that they booted out was also the interim president from a prior military coup in '09. So it's not like we're removing some democratically elected government this time in favor of a coup government. This is the second coup government in a row, but this time driven by the youth. And that Mozambique Channel that Martha's talking about, that's the channel between, right, Martha, Mozambique and Madagascar. And so that's that path down to the Cape of Good Hope where we're rerouting traffic out of the Red Sea.
so Les, some of the conditions that are fueling the protests, high unemployment, repressive, regime tactics, bans on social media, some of that's not new, right? That's a lot of what drives protests in the past. Is this new to you? Are you watching these with concern and
Just it's all new. It's all new to Les because he was born in the 1930s, and so Gen Z is all new to him.
Wow, boy, I haven't even said anything, and
this is why I gave you the
people are
final
coming at
word,
me pretty
Les?
hot here. Look,
It's early in the morning in LA where I am right now, Les.
Jamil's had too much coffee, which should be frightening for everyone. First of all, this is the first time we've seen young people be agitated on public policy issues. Good for Gen Z, really breaking new ground here. I do wonder if, and by the way, yes, two of my favorite people in the whole world are Gen Z, my son and my daughter, and they happen to be terrific. I like that generation. I'm 100% behind them. They are our future, and go get them, guys. It's great they're off their phones and they're out in the real world and doing things and like talking to each other and they care about society. That's all to the good. They seem to be against corruption and in favor of the government providing things like clean water. Also very good. So there's a lot of positivity here.
Here comes the
Martha's what? Okay, sorry, folks. We have a doctrine here that if someone interrupts you, you're not allowed to stop them from interrupting. So maybe I revealed too much. Martha had a very sober analysis of the potential geostrategic implications here, and I think that she's entirely correct on all of them. One of the other things we should be considering is that indeed the U.S. did play a role in Madagascar. We were doing military training and cooperation. We had other programs. Are those things that we were doing even relevant? Did they miss the mark? Were we focused on the wrong things? This new Trump administration has largely dismantled our international aid structure. Is there a possibility here? And I think they did some good things and some bad things in doing that. Is there an opportunity here to maybe identify some of the problems of our previous program and fix them so that we are helping support governments that are responsive to the people, that deliver things like clean drinking water and stuff like that are important to the population? And so I think there's kind of a larger U.S. government policy question on the aid front that could be addressed here. And I hope Congress funds this stuff. Congress sets up the structures. They should be looking into this. That's a big long-term question. One other quick point: the guy who was ousted as president was formerly a famous DJ in Madagascar. So the idea that you need to be like more in touch with the people and what they want, and that somehow gets you out of trouble on corruption issues and basic government functions is wrong. The old fuddy-duddies might be better at running governments. Just a thought from this guy who was born in the 30s.
Well, some of these
From an old
protests
fuddy-duddy.
are fueled by, the rich kids, the kids of the rich elites posting too much on social media also, and giving a little too much glimpse into what the folks that have things are doing. So another reason to maybe stay off your phone.
So just to be clear, Jess, you mean it's not the rich elites that are protesting, it's their posts about their own lavish lifestyle that's driving people nuts and making them crazy.
It's like a little
Reasonable,
too
by
much
the way.
transparency.
The question is, when does that happen here?
They're also very popular posts. People like to see that stuff. It's clickbait.
Wow, this is the most intense investigation of social media usage we're going to have here at NSI. Thanks so much. That's a wrap. Thanks to Kelly Crowley, Taylor Lane, Claude Jennings, and the entire NSI team for their help in producing today's episode. Join us again this Friday, October 17th, for another episode of Fault Lines, NSI's podcast that gets you smart fast on the national security and foreign policy debates shaking up America. We're on YouTube. Check out Jamil's childhood home there. And if you like what you heard or saw, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe.